How's it going, everyone? We're gonna get started very soon. Just fixing some things up right before I get it started. Okay. All right. So what we're seeing today here, we saw that the market basically had this huge dump over the yesterday's session, and we dumped down in towards this area here, right? So if you go here, we have our sell side liquidity right below that, and then we have this area fair value gap, which acted as support here for price. Right? As you guys can see, if I go here, you have your Friday's close and new weekly opening gap right there. Mark it out a little bit better. Then if you go up here, we have Friday's close and Sunday's open. So Friday's close was $39. So close and the open there. I'll just mark out one more so we can be in sync with the market. Friday's close was 40.9850. Open was close and then open. Cool. All right. Mapped out all the necessary levels here. All right. Cool. So what we're seeing here, we're bouncing off this level. I do think we can drop into this 3877 level, but NFP is dropping here, so we might push down to this level here or continue back up here, right? There's two different scenarios. I think since it's closer to this area here, it's going to come down to this 3877 area. But it's really just anything could happen with NFP. So I'm going to let price play out a little bit and see where it wants to go to. If it goes up here in these areas, then you could see some potential rejections coming forth. And we can continue towards the downside maybe. But overall, I'd have to see price play out slightly more. And these levels are simply just the new weekly opening gaps. More detailed, if you go here on this chart, we can see some more clear stuff here. So we did have this huge gap here. I think it's based on contracts changing maybe. I'm not too sure why that occurred. Maybe it is because of the contracts changing. But one thing to note here is that sell side has been grabbed right in these lows, and what we can do here is potentially make a run for, you know, this area here, 39.76 area here, right? So we're making a run here, and what could occur based on this aggressive push is that we can potentially continue higher on the day into like 40.27 or potentially 40.08, right? These levels will be of importance potentially going forward into today's action. Also, if you're a supply and demand trader, or you know, use order blocks, I use order blocks as well. I see that we have our order block here on the 15-minute time frame that price can push into and potentially see some form of rejection. Okay. Excuse me. So, do you guys have any suggestions as anything you'd like to see? And I'll be going over those as well. But so we're getting this rejection so far here in this fair value gap, and from this high to this low, this area here is equilibrium, right? So I'd like to see how price ends up reacting in this fair value gap, and it could, you know, end up, if we end up rejecting and we, you know, fail to press higher in towards this zone, we could see a break below this structure here to the downside as well, right? So there's a couple different scenarios that could end up playing out, right? I'm not really biased towards any direction currently. I'm more so observing, right? And again, I do think that we can potentially run these lows here as well, right? So if we go here, so based on the scenario that's going to play out, I'm open to different outcomes, right? I'm not necessarily biased towards anything. So here we also have, right? So again, just observing for now. We're in this large fair value gap, and we could, you know, get a rejection in here. 1 second, guys. Okay. So that's our review for ES. Again, waiting to see. It's gonna be a lot more clear after this 8:30 session. I want to see how we lead up to the 9:30 session, because that's gonna maybe cause a lot of volatility going forward, and then it'll give us a more better direction after price plays out a little bit more, right? Right now, it's just absorbing all the movements, right? Stopping people out, maybe grabbing stop losses, doing many different things, right? Just simply because of its NFP, right? And you know, it can continue higher, continue lower, but we have to wait. And you see that this is a huge range candle, right, on the 15-minute time scale. So I need something, you know, to come out of this area, come out of this range to look for a trade here, right? And one thing that I want to note are that there's equal lows here forming around here. Equal lows here forming on ES, which price can end up referring back to around market open if we continue lower, right? If we decide to continue lower. right? If not, then I'm gonna keep my main focus of tapping into this 39.93 area or potentially these highs up here. Let's go over Tesla. So the Tesla plan yesterday was given out. As you guys see that it broke above this level and immediately rejected on the 15-minute time frame, broke down and retested this area here for a short opportunity, right? Or you could play the break back in the area. But it retested and gave a short opportunity and then also gave another short opportunity right around here, right? Price broke that, retest for continuation lower, right? Retested it here, retests, and then ended up pushing lower and lower based on our levels. I think that, again, Tesla can reach all the way in this area, right? Fill this gap here. Fill the gap here into 160s area, right? 150 area. That'd be, ideal for Tesla. Because, okay, so the reason price runs through equal lows and equal highs are because, again, the retail concepts think, double top, triple top, right? So every time price pushes back up there, people think it's resistance or support. When in reality, there's a pool of money being built up in that area, right? Simply just look at this right here, right? You see that there's equal lows right here, right? Right? These equal lows, relative equal lows here basically means there's people that are looking to go short, and there's also people that are potentially looking to go long here, that already went long, right? Right? So there's liquidity right below this level. So if it taps it and aggressively rejects, it's gonna stop out not only these people that are going short or the people, but also the people that went long and their stop loss is right below that level, right? And then it'll run it eventually, right? But it's a constant pattern, right? You see that relative equal highs here, price runs it. Relative equal lows, price runs it, right? Because it offers liquidity in the market. That's what it is. And, it can refer back to the chart here, for example, perfect equal highs. And price runs it here, right? So it sets up, it's an area where money can be grabbed, basically, right? So by default, these lows right here, they're relative equal lows. And I'm expecting eventually for price to run those equal lows, okay? And again, sometimes price is going to set relative equal highs, right, and not refer back to them. That's why it's important to, understand your thesis and your bias based on how the chart is playing out, right? At a certain point, I'm not going to be super focused on these relative equal highs, especially after the price is aggressively dumping, correct? But I'm able to change my focus and shift my stance based on, the proximity of price to those levels. Hope that answers your question. Okay. So, let's go over something else here. All right. Oh, shit. There's your dry, man. All right, so here we see with Apple that price ended up breaking our pivot point here. So as we mark this out, right, on this breakout here, we wanted to see a push in towards these highs here because simply the breakout. But it rejected, went back into the breakout region, and broke this low here, leading to a short for the downside, right, in towards these pivot points. What we could see here is that if you retest this area, right, if you maintain a retest and we reject this area, we can see lower prices below yesterday's lows, right? So that's going to set the light bias on the day as to where price might potentially push to. Let's go over again SPY here. Nothing really crazy. Just comparing it to the ES chart. Any ticker suggestion? So I'll go over AMD real quick because a lot of people trade AMD, I guess. AMD's been slowly recovering. I don't know how long this recovery is gonna last. Maybe it'll be short-sighted or short-lived, I'd say. But we are in this trend on AMD. We're bouncing off this zone here, this gap fill, and we have this uptrend going on here. So what's going to be important here is that the pivot points are going to be between this level and these highs right here. You can mark out your zones on AMD through here, and then mark these levels down here. Right, and we could see if we break like 84 on AMD, potential target would be this area right here, right? This 82 region, and then I think again below that we'll see 81.60, 80.69. These lows here would be referred to on price, but the main pivot points are right here. So we could also have a midpoint here where price can flip from. So these highs could be of importance, right, to see how price, reacts to these highs here. Could be an area of major liquidity up here. And we can reject somewhere around here, right? So I don't really trade AMD, but that's just my take on it, because this 85 level could act as big resistance on price, which could send it lower. It's like in the video. Same things that I'm kind of looking at here. Let's clear up the chart a little bit. So with NVIDIA, right, we have this gap on here on price that could get filled, right? Up there, that price could push to and then eventually reject up there, causing a huge move. But right now, we're somewhat going sideways, right? We are going sideways here based on the chart. More specifically, we can, draw some patterns out here. But we're simply just, sideways action for now. So we could see this and be like, okay, we broke this, right? But I'm not going to look at it this way. I'm simply going to see how price reacts to my pivot point here, right? Gonna see how price reacts to the pivot point here, and eventually this low here. So if we end up, not wanting to push higher into this 256 area, 255 area, I want to see if bears can take and drop price below 232.43 and push it below it and retest it in towards 225 area on NVIDIA. And then it would ultimately be the gap fill, because it slightly filled the gap, so you'll have the remainder of the gap fill from here to here. Right, you have the remainder of the gap fill that price can tap into. Okay. So we went over Tesla. Okay, Netflix. We'll go over SMH right now. 1 second. So here we see Netflix, right? Complete breakdown above these levels right here, and you have this huge up channel on the daily time frame getting broken. So I think that we can continue short on Netflix. Again, maybe it'll consolidate a little bit more, but I do think it'll potentially push lower. I think the next relative area, or relevant area for price to push into would be here. Right, this 271 area, because as long as it maintains below 300, and because we're breaking a big level, so this 300 level is going to act as huge support or resistance for price. But as long as we maintain below it, we could see lower prices on Netflix. And then you have your 4-hour pivots right here. So you can see how price ends up reacting to 300, 310 area, and then below, if it maintains below 300, it can push lower. See SMH. Okay. SMH, similar chart here, right? So this is semiconductors, right? We see that, we can potentially continue breaking lower. Right, but under certain conditions, right, I'd like to see at least these lows get taken out, and then I'd be targeting this low, and then this low. Upon that break, right, so here's going to be your pivot points. Here as well. And then here. I doubt we break all the way down here, but just really depends on what price wants to do, to be honest. But I do see us, maybe potentially breaking this low. If not, we can rally. If we rally back above this high, you can look for more short opportunities or for potential long opportunity. Depends on how it treats this zone up here, right? Because this is going to be a big pivot area as well. So it really comes down to what price does. It's not gapping up or down. I think it's opening flat for the most part. Yeah. And so it's basically just could be this huge uptrend that changes price here. So we'll see what happens based off this chart, and then you could use this to cross apply it to NVIDIA and AMD. SE, Amazon. Let's go over Amazon. So Amazon, we have these equal lows right here, which could eventually get ran on. You could see price run through these levels. Yesterday, huge dump on on Amazon, right? Yeah, this is actually insane how fast it dumped. So just based on this, 4-hour chart, we can potentially see lower prices on Amazon here, right? And again, what we could be doing here is maybe rejecting these fair value gaps but just on a specific like level basis, like we could see like these levels right here. This would act as a huge resistance on price and can potentially send price lower. Right, this price, as long as it maintains below this 93.50 level, right, we can see continuation rejection, right? So this is going to be your main pivot point. Really depends on what the market wants to do. And if you end up rejecting, we could run these lows potentially for the main play of the day. I also wouldn't be opposed to price potentially retracing 50% of this move, right? So potentially coming to this area here, right? These areas up here would not, would be bad if market rallies. Like, let's see what ES is doing. So ES is still holding this new weekly opening gap, this fair value gap here as well. Again, it can potentially reject and send price lower. So it really all comes down to what 930 has in store for us. But with Amazon, this is my pivot point up here. SE. So SE here, we had this huge run up. I don't know, maybe it was earnings or something. Probably not earnings, but basically what we see here is that it can potentially rally higher, right? Depending on how it reacts to this downtrend area. Excuse me. Yeah, but we had this large breakout, push higher here. We might end up retracing the full move. I really don't know, but our pivot points will be that level with, we can see that if it starts capturing these highs here, we could see how price ends up, playing out in that area. Right? So if you capture, these highs, right, these would be your pivot points. See how price reacts. If you break below 76, 20, 30, so I have a zone here at $80 level is going to be important, right? Just psychological number. And also this 76 level is going to be important as well to see if price wants to potentially push lower or higher, right? But if you do end up pushing higher, right, we might reject. But if you do end up breaking out of this 80 region, you could eventually push higher into like 85, area as well on SE. I really don't know how these stocks move, so I don't really trade these. Also, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe as well. I'd appreciate that. So, any other stocks you guys want me to look at? If not, then I'm going to cut it out here and then join the Discord and continue on live trading from 9:30 until 10 a.m. With that being said, I appreciate everyone for joining. I'll check out Microsoft as well. Okay. Last stock I'll check out, and then I'm going to call it. So Microsoft here, we had these pivot points, it rallied higher and then broke down lower here. Your main pivot point that you're going to be looking at is still the same, which is this low right here. If it wants to continue lower based on yesterday's lows as well, right? So you want to take into account yesterday's lows, these relative equal lows here. And right now, we gapped up a little bit. We're at 253. So this is going to be your major pivot point here, right? Above these highs right here. So you want to see how price interacts with this zone here, right? Because there's an order block here. So you want to see how price interacts with this zone, and it could potentially reject it for a push lower. If it holds it and maintains it, it really depends on what market wants to do. Breaks and retests it and holds it, we can see a push higher potentially. So that's what I'll be looking on for Microsoft, but I don't really trade these. So, But I'd be looking at this 254 area, right? That's going to be a big pivot point, especially, and yesterday's lows as well, right? This low and this low. But that's about it for today, guys. I appreciate everyone for joining. And again, I'll be doing the same thing here going on, Monday as well. So Monday through Friday, I'll be doing pre-market live streams on YouTube. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys in the Discord. Take care.